for the chimichangas. Having fun, getting nerdy, fly with Adrian APM, also known as Solid High, the comic guy. Boom, pow, got pops like Funko, how you like me now? Eating comics for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. A real winner, like DP and Spidey, talking about other superheroes. Let's open some mystery boxes and celebrate weirdos. Imagination never ends, united through comics, we all friends.
Everybody, how's it going? It's Adrian APM, and today we have a very special, groovy, wicked awesome Mr. Man of many words, Frank Gogol. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's Sunday, coffee.
Nice. You a football guy?
I am, but apparently every game's getting canceled almost.
Yeah.
At least the important ones.
Yeah, or if you're like me, none of your games are getting canceled, but all your whole team's broken. Just 49ers are nuts.
Yeah, so you play fantasy football then?
Not in the last couple of years. Comics makes that really hard to keep up with everything, watch all the games. But I did, and I won a few times, and I really enjoyed the experience. But
nice.
Not this year.
Yeah, for me, it was the first year I did it. I did great. Like I won it. Then coming up into for newer years, it just kind of. I did terrible.
I'm sure that the experience is really interesting this year. Just especially with like Brady being on the Bucks now, and just
right.
Like a lot of shakeups this year, and then Mahomes coming in and being the new Brady. There's a lot. I remember that the first time I played, we had the quarterbacks like super weighted for some reason. Like it was just the settings were messed up, and we got through half the season before anyone really kind of picked up on it. And by then, if we had changed it, it would have altered all the back points, so we couldn't do anything about it. But I had Brady that year, and like I was winning by like 200 points every game. And I think amazing.
Yeah, I go a little biased, since I'm in Wisconsin. Obviously I pick up Rodgers, but hey, guess what? We're 4-0 already this year, so I can't complain. So
yeah, they look good. Like Aaron's looking good. It's nice to see them with not a ton of injuries up front.
Right. Yeah. There's like, who knows? We could probably talk for hours about injuries alone.
Yeah.
I guess for all the people that are going to be watching this, can you just give them a little brief about who are you? I mean, what got you into this thing, man?
So I'm Frank Gogol. I am a comic book writer. You may know me from a couple things, or maybe not, but that's all right. But I put out a book 3 or 4 years ago called Grief. Went on to get nominated for a Ringo Award, which is kind of like the Golden Globes of comics. Then after that, I put out a book that maybe you heard of called Dead and Kids. This did pretty well for my first miniseries. Kind of blew up on me, put me on the map. And then just this week, we finished up releasing my 2020 book, No Heroin, which has done really just incredible considering everything going on in the world. Super grateful about that. I'm a comic book writer. I've been doing this for it'll be 5 years in April, so not too long, but I've been around for a bit. I write with SourcePoint Press. They're such a good publisher. They've taken such good care of me, and they're putting out some of the best indie books in the game. I never really know what to say when people ask me to introduce myself. I'm a Libra. I like long walks on the beach.
I was just about to say I like long walks on,
and it's true.
It's where you go from there.
I have a dog named Waffle. She's great. But that's me.
I was actually going to ask not saying you don't like cats, but I was going to see if you're a dog or a cat person.
I have one of each, actually. I definitely am a dog person. My wife is a cat person. Our animals look like they could have come from the same parent animal. Like they're both white with brindle and shades of brown. Like it's uncanny how similar these two animals look. But my dog's name is Waffle, and the cat doesn't really have a name. Like I don't think it makes sense to name a cat because it's not like it's going to come when you call it.
Sure.
So he has a bunch of names. Primarily, I call him Pizza Cat after Pizza Dog from Hawkeye.
I'm familiar, yeah.
But I don't know. Sometimes his name is Boober Snoot. Sometimes his name is Cat. Yeah, it's just whatever I'm feeling, yeah.
Yeah, we're dog parents here, but we're actually going to be adopting two cats that could been coming up. So
Oh, nice, nice. You know what? It's not as bad as you think it's going to be. We have a long hair cat, and that's kind of the biggest downfall for me because like his hair is really fine and it gets on my pillow, and then when I lay down, it like sticks to my face.
sure.
But even I've even gotten desensitized to that. He's a good kitty.
Nice. I kind of want to ask you about to you like from what I was reading, like who is Andy Schmidt to you? Like,
Sure.
did he just? I mean, what is he done for you? What do you feel like he's done for you?
Yeah. So for everyone watching, if you're not familiar, Andy Schmidt is the president, CEO, whatever you want to call him, of an online comic school called Comics Experience. It's a really great resource for anyone who wants to create comics, whether it's writing like I did, or drawing, inking, lettering, coloring, editing. Like they've got classes for pretty much everything. They've got sort of specialized classes on like comic book law and IP law and stuff like that. I mean, it really is a robust offering. The school is wonderful. Andy, for anyone who's unfamiliar with Andy, he was an editor at Marvel. He edited on Annihilation back in the early 2000s. He was one of the editors on the Ed Brubaker Winter Soldier stuff in Captain America. He ran the Transformers line at IDW for a lot of years. So Andy's the guy who knows his stuff. And he's the guy who taught me some of what I know about writing. I've got a couple of master's degrees in creative writing, but Andy's really the guy who unlocked sort of understanding how to write comics for me. So that's who Andy is to me. I mean, these days I consider Andy a friend. He and I have shared a hotel room for a convention before. We talk regularly. He's just, kind of like a godfather in a weird way. Like he's the guy I asked for advice. Like Marvel reached out to me this year about submitting some samples. They did last year as well. But when I got that email from the talent department at Marvel, I hit Andy. I was like, hey, you got half hour to chat on the phone. I got some questions about how to approach this. And, he got me on his calendar and we chatted. So it's like that, it's a really good relationship. And Andy is one of the crazily unsung heroes of the comic book industry. I mean, you wouldn't have guys like Nick Spencer without Andy. Nick Spencer did Comics Experience, doesn't really talk about it, but he went through one of the early versions of the classes back when they were in person. David Pepos, who did Spencer and Locke, and just put out a crazy good Kickstarter for the OZ. He's an alum. Ram V, who's on Justice League Dark right now, is an alum. I mean, so like there are a lot of people working in the industry right now who are in part doing it because of Andy, and I'm definitely one of them too.
Oh, that's awesome. Kind of going off of what you just said there, you're talking about you're doing conventions. I mean, we could talk for days about that too. Like when it comes back, how great it's going to be. Me being I've been a musician, so I've toured and I've done is it kind of do you feel like it's kind of like the same thing where you're touring from town to town and it's got the rock star feel? Not saying you're trashing every hotel room, but I'm saying, does it have that feel to it kind of?
Yes and no. That's the honest answer. So the difference between a band tour and a con tour is most people go home between gigs. Some people plan it out in a way that they can drive from one city to the next, and they're doing it all day long. I have a day job. I work for a startup, and I do all their marketing. So it's I leave on like a Thursday night or a Friday night, and I come back late Sunday night, early Monday morning, and then I go work 5 days, and then I usually go to another con the next weekend. Like I don't really get days off anymore. This year has been nice. I've gotten some days off. It's been terrible. This year's been terrible, but it's been nice to have some days off. So in that way, it's like a little bit not the same, but the general tiredness and constantly on your feet and like moving around doing stuff of being on tour is true. Source Point Press does things a little bit differently. The people working the booth when you go to a Source Point Press booth at a con are the creators for the most part. Like I'd say 80% of them are the creators. So I'll fly out to, somewhere, LA, Connecticut, wherever the con is. And I will work their booth. And they will, let me get into the con for free, essentially. So like it's kind of a trade-off. Like they let me get there and I don't have to pay for a table, and they'll let me use theirs, and I work and I sell their books and my books, and everybody wins kind of situation. they're really gracious about providing hotels for people, with the caveat that it's sometimes 3 people to a bed, which is a little more of the band experience.
Sure.
Not quite sleeping on friends' couches in every city, but
Right.
I definitely shared my share of beds with a couple of other dudes, and you know what? I survived the hell of the experience, and it worked out, and it's all good. I know for New York Comic Con, we always get an Airbnb, and it's like 11 people packed into a 2-bedroom Airbnb, and like you make it work. Like 3 people sleep on one couch, somebody on the floor next to you. It's a little bit of a punk rock vibe to it, honestly.
Oh yeah, I love it, man. I've done it. So yeah, I'm all about it. So I guess I want to jump in to talk a little about this grief. That's what can you tell us about grief, man? What can you?
Sure. So Grief was my first book. It's a short story collection. When I started writing comics, I sort of made the decision to bat at my own level and start small. I always use this kind of weightlifting metaphor for doing comics. Say you want to be the next Arnold and you want to bench press 300 pounds. And, you're not going to walk into the gym on day one and throw up 400 pounds and just not break a sweat. You're not going to be able to do it at all. But if you walk in on day one and you start with the bar, which is 35, 45 pounds, and then you add 10 pounds, then you add 20 pounds, and you slowly work yourself up and build those muscles up, there's a really good chance that one day you'll be able to do 400 if you keep at it. So I started with short stories, little 5-7 page guys. Then I wrote one shots, then I wrote miniseries, and now I'm writing longer miniseries. So it's very much been a growth thing for me, and it's worked out really well. So Grief is a collection of short stories. It's little 5-page stories, but sort of horror, sci-fi kind of genre stories that are kind of built around the idea of the 5 stages of the grieving process. And it's a really personal book, but it's also a kind of cool book. I put a lot of thought into how it was put together and little things that I think make it special. But yeah, it was my first book. It came out. It was a digital only Kickstarter in 2017. Ended up getting like triple funded in like the first 10 hours. It was wild for a book that nobody could actually hold from a guy they never met. It was incredibly successful. That book was picked up by Source Point Press in 2017 and came out through them in print in 2018. And that was sort of how I got in the door there. We just released the second printing of it the last week of September, maybe. So it's the same book, but with a slightly different cover. The cover art is inverted, so it's red and black now instead of blue and white. So it's pretty cool. So that's Grief. As far as first books go, it's been incredibly rewarding for me. It opened doors to publishers. The reaction to it's been honestly universally like wonderful praise. Like no one's ever had anything bad to say about the book to me, except that they wish there was more of it. So like I said, as far as first books go, like I couldn't ask for more, and it continues to keep giving me more. Up through a second printing just a couple weeks ago.